it's basically a luxury development where people buy it for what? For status, for trophy. Nice to keep, nice to have. Okay, but does it mean that it will grow? We are like topic number 2 now. Can integrated development withstand the test of time? Especially so when we will talk about withstand the test of time, they are talking about freehold properties, right? But again, this is conflicting. Why so? Because integrated development do not have freehold tenure. So with that in mind, let's see how it performs and whether it is true that it will withstand the test of time. So in this instance, we are going to debunk the myth. Does urban transformation fundamentals matters here for integrated development? So let's put it to the test. We talk about the last so-called very hype up launch with a good runway to give you some data to analyze is Bedok Residences that we spoke about just now. Okay, so it was sold up to 350 units on the first day of launch, out of 583 units back then in year 2011. Okay, and this is by capital N. In terms of profitable transaction that we saw 97 of them on and off. And in terms of unprofitable transaction, there is 7 units. All right, and basically these are the 97 profitable transaction as you see on the transaction caveats here. And then in terms of historical transaction price trend that you see here over the span of from 2012 all the way to 2021, over here is a linear line going up a slight gradient. For more than 10% profit out of the 97 units that was profitable, 35% were more than 10%. And less than 10% profit, there were 62 of them. Okay, so not everyone is actually enjoying huge growth, so to speak. And then again, we talk about more than 20% profit. If you are basically falls under this 35 units category, only 2 earns more than 20%. And that is over a span of how long? 10 years altogether. All right, that means you are barely hedging against inflation of about what? 1.5 to 2%, right? Okay, so again, buying Bedok Residences, why it didn't profit as much, even though it's an integrated development. We'll share more with you in a bit. So next, we're not going to just use Bedok Residences again. We talk about someone who entered in year 2012 and holding out for 4 years because one, back in 2012, seller's stamp duty was actually 4 years. Okay, and you talk about annualized of 1.7% year on year. Generally, in year 2012, you buy a 1288 PSF. In year 2016, you actually only exited for 1377 PSF. And that's barely again covering any so-called bank interest rate or even your buyer's stamp duty if you were to exit during this span of time. All right. So the Tennery, if you guys are familiar with this project, is sitting on this so-called mall called the Junction 10. All right. So over here, Far East organization actually had Tennery sold out within a year. Okay, it's focusing a lot of Soho concept, which is what Far East are known to basically introduce in the market back then. And then you talk about profitable transaction here, we have 36 of them, okay? And unprofitable transaction, we have about 43 of them, okay? And these are the entire so-called profitable transaction, 36, and unprofitable, 43. There's more unprofitable than profitable here. Very so-called concerning, right? Okay, so in this instance, we then look at the historical price of the Tennery. From 2011 at 1,300 plus per square foot, drop all the way to even 900 plus per square foot. Okay, so some of them are even buying in right now because Tennery seems cheap, but is it the right move to do so? We'll uncover that in a bit. Okay, so in these instances, we then talk about the more than 10% profit. In fact, there's 7. And we talk about more than 20% profit, there's 0. And more than 8% suffer losses. Okay, and so more than 8% losses here, we are talking about 15 so-called unfortunate owner or investors here. So the impact of urban transformation, we will learn on the first masterclass with me. On the left side over here, we see the percentages in 0, 20, 40, and these are the capital gain that we will be aligning with on the left axis. On the right axis, we have the rental yield. They are in 3, 3.1, 3.2, etc. Okay, and the product at the bottom, what you see here are all integrated development from launch date from year 2001 all the way to 2015. Okay, so in this instance, if you line them together, this is how they have grown from since launch day. Of course, the longer runway you have, you definitely have a higher runway or higher profit altogether. Okay, which is Campus Heights and Centuries. And again, we talk about mediumly from 2012 onwards. That means not from the 20s, 2012 onwards. What we see a lot more disparity here is Points Residences getting about 30% comparing to the rest, even Watertown at 18, Park Place at 16, the rest at barely just above 10, right? So again, if you talk about the next one, which is the last 3 years, that means buying something again in the resale market, which one actually give you more profit? Points Residences actually enjoy close to the first batch of buyers as well, okay? And Park Place also, alright? And the Century is about 10%, not too bad, okay? And again, if you look at rental yield perspective, all about the same, approximately 3 and above, even 3 to 3.3 mainly, alright? So again, integrated development gives you 3 and above rental yield. But what's so interesting to note is that if you look at urban transformation zone, these properties were basically launched during a time when the government has earmarked its demographic as a growth area. So Campus Heights itself was actually a new town back then in 2001, especially so when Sengkang HDB flat was only introduced in government's planning from 1994 onwards. So Campus Heights was actually a new so-called development in the introduction of new township urban transformation action plan. Okay, and again, the Centuries itself is shortly after, basically we had the Jurong Lake District that was introduced in year 2008. Watertown itself in 2012, shortly after, basically we earmarked this area. Basically, it's a new town, so to speak. And then, of course, with all the rejuvenation plan that's coming up in Punggol throughout the years, of course, with the Punggol Digital District as well, and of course, Points Residences, that was just one MRT away from the Bidadari new town that enjoyed tremendous gain altogether. And of course, Park Place Residences, which is also part of the so-called Paya Lebar Quarters transformation. And of course, in the near future, the Paya Lebar relocation of the airbase. Alright, so with that, we see that if you are under the urban transformation area, you definitely enjoy better growth altogether. Okay, so next thing, we then talk about all in all, in terms of growth from launch day. In urban transformation zoning, we get 52.4% growth, but in the so-called outside of growth area is 13.4%, even though you are integrated development. So for the last 3 years, integrated development at growth area is 11.8% growth, and not within the growth area, 6.1%. In terms of rental yield, it's pretty much the same because again, it's just rental command given its efficiency of going towards the shopping mall, MRTs, and even bus interchange, right? So next, we then talk about over here, breaking down even further. So me and my research team, what we did was that we put it down even further to give you further data for comparison. Okay, so very interesting here. Same thing on the left side, we see capital gain. Right now, we even have negative 20, 10, 0, 10%, etc. And at the bottom itself, we see 6 different estate or district that is being break down into 3 different asset class altogether. So for example, the first so-called area of focus, which is Bukit Panjang over here, there is 3 development. One of it is integrated, which is Helian Residences. We then have the mixed-use development, which is the Tennery, followed by a full-fledged residential development, which is Mainspring. Right, so with that, we further break it down into different regions. We then talk about OCR, outside central region, rest of central region, and core central region altogether. So again, all these district, or if not, its estate is being broken down into 3 different assets class. And then we look at their performance throughout the same period of time. Okay, so in this instance, we talk about capital growth from the last 3 years. We note that RCR area actually is the outlier with comparing to the other 2 regions altogether. Be it is mixed-use development, or if not, fully integrated development. Okay, and then next thing, we then talk about rental yield. As per October last month, we are talking about 3% throughout. Only, of course, talking about Orchard area, and of course, Orchard area itself, noting because the entry price is way higher, definitely is a lot more lower in terms of rental yield. Okay, so what we want to denote here is basically urban transformation area. So within the urban transformation area, which is Geylang, Potong Pasir, and Tanjong Pagar, we then denote that there is also another form of disparity where Tanjong Pagar area actually goes on the negative, whereas in RCR area, Geylang and Potong Pasir actually went on the opposite side of it, which is huge growth of 20% or 18% altogether. So in this instance, we then realize that because if you look at the integrated development that is selected here, Wallage, which is within the Tanjong Pagar area, it's basically a luxury development where people buy it for what? For status, for trophy. It's good to keep. Okay, nice to keep, not good to keep, nice to keep. nice to have. Okay, but does it mean that it will grow? Basically isn't. In fact, we even have James Dyson that actually bought a penthouse for 54 million, and then within 1 year, because he changed his mind, wanted to go back to the UK, and then he sold it for a loss at 47 million altogether, and that's excluding all the seller stamp duties that he got to pay. So this will definitely trigger the volatility of price drop, given the notion of owning such luxury development altogether. Even though it's integrated, but this is a luxury so-called segment. All right. So if you talk about the different segment here, the CBD precinct is a bit different in terms of integrated development, where people buy by way of what status. Okay, to have it is good, it's nice to have, but not because of what? For investment altogether. All right. So in this instance, we see Geylang itself, we have of course Park Place Residences, and also in Potong Pasir we have Point Residences that actually gives you that level of growth. So again, debunking the myth here. Can integrated development withstand the test of time? And right now we talk about watching out for the 15-year shelf life. When does the 15-year shelf life start from? There is 2 markers. If you remember, just type in the chat box. Okay? Anyone of you remember? Massive subsale, fantastic. Good. And TOP, fantastic. Both of you got it right. Okay, so massive subsale and date of TOP. So in this instance, let's look at these 2 projects that I will be showing. One by way of massive subsale, one by way of TOP, because it's a residential precinct. So integrated development, there's not much to begin with. So the first one we talk about here is Icon, which is completed in 2007, which is TOP in 2007. But again, its massive subsale starts from 2004. So we're going to count from this date. All right. And its 15-year shelf life will then put us at 2019. Okay, that's the 15-year shelf life. And then we then talk about the next so-called development over here, which is the integrated development called Campus Heights. So one is mixed use, one is integrated. All right. So Icon is mixed use. So this one we then talk about the TOP date is at year 2002 for Campus Heights, and its 15-year shelf life then lands us in 2017. So a lot of people then think that, hey, you know, right now it seems cheap, why not go in? If we were to go in at its 15-year shelf life, which you can see where it stops at, the property price is actually even stagnated, and some even we see it dropping as well. So what is red color and what is blue color? Red color means the asking price by the owner, but blue color is actually the transaction that's been done. So importantly, you can ask, hi, but is it really selling? Well, it's not really happening. Okay. So with that, 15-year shelf life still matters, even though you buy into an integrated development where people actually speculate it as it will withstand the test of time. So over here, I just shared with you that it doesn't. Okay. So do take note of that.